TikTok's dominant influence on popular culture in the West is widely acknowledged. Almost every popular song, meme, fashion trend, development, and slang can be traced back to TikTok in some way. The platform's content is consumed by almost everyone you know. Other social media platforms that were once at the forefront of internet culture have now taken a backseat while TikTok has taken over. It boasts over 1 billion active users worldwide, with 80 million in the United States alone. Given its significant impact on Generation Z, it's clear why TikTok has become a trend-setting powerhouse. Considering that young people are the primary drivers of popular culture, TikTok has become the main influencer by providing a platform where they can rapidly and continuously create and consume content. The influence of American popular culture is particularly important as it sets the pace for the Western world. What becomes popular in the United States quickly spreads globally. This is why TikTok and its most followed individuals hold tremendous power. They can shape and unify global culture. This influence will only grow stronger as the average TikTok user spends over 1.5 hours on the app daily, and 60% of users belong to Generation Z. TikTok has seamlessly integrated into everyday life, leaving an immeasurable impact on people's culture and personal lives. At first glance, popular TikTokers like Addison Rae and Zach King appear to be the youth driving culture, creating entertaining videos enjoyed and shared by the masses. Their trends attract existing celebrities and older generations who fear being left out. However, what if I told you that it's not just Generation Z or influencers who drive popular culture? Instead, the steering wheel might be tightly held by the white-knuckled hands of a fascist government in a country that poses a significant threat to the United States. To understand this point, we must delve into the origins of TikTok. It all started in 2012 when Zhang Yiming, the founder of ByteDance, a tech company based in Beijing, developed an algorithm designed to addict users by rapidly providing them with short-form content and analyzing their viewing habits. ByteDance acquired Musical.ly, a Shanghai-based social media startup, in 2017. Musical.ly allowed users to create short music videos synced to popular songs and engage with their communities. ByteDance recognized the potential in combining this with the scroll-focused interface of their existing app, Flipagram, to create TikTok. By merging these apps, ByteDance was creating a powerful algorithm. With TikTok rapidly feeding user-generated content to the masses, it became a platform where aspiring creators and influencers could go viral like never before. ByteDance initially tested this formula in China, attracting both content consumers and creators within months. As the app gained prominence throughout China, the Chinese government saw a tremendous opportunity. Understanding the Chinese government's nature is crucial. The Chinese Communist Party, CCP, has governed China since 1949, rising to power under Mao Zedong's leadership after a brutal civil war. Controlling culture to manipulate the population has always been a core focus for the CCP. In the Great Cultural Revolution, Mao used propaganda to promote certain idols as socialist heroes, exemplified by model soldiers like Lei Feng and Dong Kunrui who dedicated their lives to the state. The CCP imposed mass censorship, controlled media, and created enemies in the West. Since Mao's era, the CCP has consistently cracked down on liberalization and employed various propaganda techniques to mold the minds of Chinese youth. This context is crucial for what follows. Today, the CCP stands as one of the most successful totalitarian regimes, with over 96 million members under the current leader, Xi Jinping. Xi's government seeks total control over every aspect of modern life. They offer the promise of escaping poverty and hardship to the masses in exchange for obedience and acceptance of the party's propaganda and status quo. Those who dissent risk imprisonment or being sent to re-education camps. The level of control Xi Jinping exerts over China surpasses what Mao Zedong could have imagined. The CCP maintains strict control over Chinese culture, employing extreme surveillance, monitoring, and data collection to create individual profiles. Each citizen is assigned a social credit score. This allows them to accomplish two things: incentivizing their citizens to behave and effectively predicting the future regarding those who are likely to disobey. Another major facet of CCP's control is enforced legislation that restricts the influence of foreign media and internet access. Through these methods, the Chinese government creates citizens who are more economically efficient and politically obedient than those in foreign nations. This consolidates China's position as the world's global superpower. Additionally, this leads to an important point. When Xi Jinping was elected in 2012, he campaigned on the promise of the Chinese dream, which is described as the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation by the 100th anniversary of the CCP's founding in 2049. The success of this plan hinges on a series of 5-year economic plans to ensure China's dominance as a global superpower. However, to achieve such global dominance, Xi Jinping and the CCP need to strengthen their own position while weakening the positions of competing nations. The way to accomplish this is by enacting similar cultural control over the rest of the world, just as they have achieved within China. With this context established, the value of TikTok becomes clear. TikTok is an app meticulously designed for growth and popularity, boasting one of the world's most advanced algorithms. It constantly collects data on the global population. It is not surprising to discover that the Chinese government had a plan for TikTok. In the short term, the app serves as a tool to collect data on foreign citizens, creating profiles similar to the existing social credit scores within China. In the long term, TikTok becomes instrumental in infiltrating popular culture worldwide. It is worth noting that governments attempting to influence the culture of foreign nations is not a new practice. This approach is relatively common.
Genuine concern, I think, for the U.S. government, in the sense that because the parent company of TikTok is a Chinese company.
Collect certain information about the device you use to access the platform, such as your IP address, user agent, mobile carrier, time zone settings, identifiers for advertising purpose, device IDs, your screen resolution and operating system, app and file names and types.
For example, governments with numerous human rights violations often use investment groups to acquire controlling stakes in sports. By purchasing European football clubs, countries like Qatar or the United Arab Emirates aim to elevate the success and status of these clubs through excessive spending. In doing so, they legitimize their countries and normalize their kingdoms, creating a fan base that is theoretically loyal to defending these nations. However, this approach often backfires. It becomes too obvious and draws widespread criticism. The Chinese Communist Party is aware of this and prefers a more subtle approach to foreign public relations. For years, they have exerted control over media and technology companies, such as Tencent and Huawei, to establish influence in Western culture. This is no secret, as most world governments are aware of these activities. Tencent, based in Shenzhen, is one of the highest-grossing media companies globally. It has investments in major cultural pillars like the NBA, Reddit, Spotify, Epic Games, and Activision Blizzard. The Chinese government, through Tencent, has utilized these ties to suppress and limit the reach of discourse surrounding the genocide being carried out by the Chinese state. They censor any information about the Muslim Uyghur population being sent to concentration camps and quash protests in Beijing. Huawei is no better. Documented evidence confirms that their surveillance products, targeting both consumers and businesses, provide unprecedented levels of information to the Chinese government. What makes Chinese propaganda so effective is their ability to stay under the radar and quietly exert influence in various areas. Unlike countries like Qatar, China has seen numerous benefits with minimal drawbacks. They effectively utilize Tencent to suppress foreign support for Hong Kong. In fact, there is a significant reason why this information may be unfamiliar to many. For instance, in 2019, the president of the Philadelphia 76ers publicly criticized China, resulting in Tencent ceasing the airing of their games. Consequently, the club experienced a substantial loss in revenue and was compelled to issue a public apology. Countless instances like this demonstrate a broader plan. Through these investments in Western companies, China has gained the power to manipulate public opinion and censor critics abroad. The solution to this issue may seem obvious, leading one to wonder why the Western world has not taken steps to limit China's interference with their media and technology infrastructure, as they have done with other hostile governments like North Korea and Russia. The answer becomes apparent when one examines the relationship China has cultivated with the Western world. China has effectively projected an image of being somewhat liberalized in the eyes of the Western world. Additionally, it is reported that TikTok is willing to share more of its algorithm to avoid being banned in the US. According to an article published by The Washington Journal, TikTok seeks to win allies in the US by increasing transparency. In the proposed arrangement, third-party monitors from the US would examine the video recommendation algorithms to detect manipulation or unauthorized access by the Chinese government or other foreign actors. It appears that the Chinese company aims to project an image of alliance to avoid being banned in the US. Since the 1970s, CCP leaders have maintained appearances and engaged in friendly relations with leaders of global superpowers to ensure national security and economic growth. This strategy has allowed the public to witness their leaders interacting with figures such as Mao Zedong and Xi Jinping, thereby humanizing the CCP. China did not become unfavorable to the majority of Americans until 2018, coinciding with TikTok's surge in the US market. Whether this timing was coincidental or planned, TikTok's rise perfectly aligned with the beginning of the second stage of China's foreign policy aggression. After establishing friendships, China began making deals and acquiring parts of the Western economy. Moreover, China has consolidated power over global trade by purchasing approximately 100 ports in 60 different countries, effectively exerting control over critical global infrastructure. In fact, it could be argued that China has almost colonized Africa at this point. However, the trade wars between the two global superpowers exacerbated tensions, and China's propaganda towards the US intensified. Meanwhile, the West appeared preoccupied with other significant concerns during this period. The Western world was engrossed in the Middle East and Russia, while the Chinese government strategically positioned itself. However, what was the purpose behind their efforts, and what does China seek to gain? It's not merely about the freedom to exert economic or cultural influence. Those are just means to an end. The truth is, China is currently preparing for war. With a defense budget exceeding $270 billion and steadily increasing each year, the Chinese government is reportedly restructuring, ramping up recruitment, and enhancing payment centers for military personnel. There are also reports of lucrative offers from the Chinese military to former officers of the British Air Force, aiming to strengthen their training methods. Although China has not initiated conflict yet, all indications suggest that it's only a matter of time. One doesn't need to look far to realize that China has its sights set on Taiwan. The Chinese government is threatening to use force if peaceful consolidation of the two nations cannot be achieved. To demonstrate this, China has conducted combat drills in the air and sea near Taiwan twice in the past month, preparing to storm the presidential building. China claims this is a resolute response to provocative actions from external forces and Taiwan's independent movements. But why is China pursuing this? What is their ultimate goal in absorbing Taiwan? While there are various reasons, trade stands out as a significant factor. Taiwan's GDP was estimated to be over $800 billion in 2022, with China and the US being its two largest export partners. Additionally, there is a growing global demand for advanced semiconductors, a vital component of the world's technology industry. Taiwan is responsible for 90% of semiconductor production. Furthermore, nearly half of the demand for semiconductors comes from the United States. Taiwan has always been part of China's 2049 plan. It was never meant to break away. The CCP views Taiwan's independence as a stain on their rule, and Chinese leaders have consistently expressed their desire to reunify with Taiwan. It's only a matter of time until this happens. China is also grappling with internal crises, as people protest against the authoritarian regime, lockdowns, and surveillance. China needs a distraction, and what better time than when the West is preoccupied with Ukraine? It becomes evident that the possibility of a war between China and Taiwan, inevitably involving the United States, is very real. Although the US has no official diplomatic duty to assist Taiwan, it would be advantageous for them to do so. If they fail to act, the US would be conceding all its power to China. With this in mind, it becomes clear why the Chinese government places significant importance on TikTok. As the dominant social media platform in the United States, controlling TikTok would provide control over the narrative surrounding any future tensions between the two countries. Social media has immense power to influence political opinions, a power that has been amplified in recent years in the United States. Traditional media sources have faced increasing skepticism, as it has become evident that they prioritize entertainment and profit over factual reporting. Misinformation runs rampant, and social media platforms amplify it, making it challenging to discern the truth. This leads to blind trust and the spread of misinformation, creating online echo chambers that deepen division, siege mentality, and toxic culture. We witnessed the consequences of these echo chambers in 2020 with widespread Black Lives Matter protests and the Capitol riots that threatened American democracy. Unfortunately, foreign agents have taken advantage of this quest for truth and have interfered in democracies worldwide, pursuing their agendas in the online space. Foreign dictators and autocracies exploit social media platforms for their own gain, prompting discussions about banning these sites and countering their influence. China's ability to control its segregated internet can easily be extended to influence platforms abroad. TikTok, with its remarkable growth, has emerged as a dominant social media platform in the United States and globally, making it an ideal tool for the Chinese government. Its algorithm, specifically designed for virality, enables certain ideas and content to gain momentum rapidly. TikTok users trust the platform to curate content aligned with their interests, although there is no governing authority ensuring this. Consequently, users may struggle to distinguish between what they see on TikTok and their actual surroundings. This capacity for psychological manipulation and ideological influence on TikTok appears intentional, and ByteDance, and by extension, the Chinese government, retains complete control over the algorithm. They can manipulate inputs to promote specific videos while restricting the reach of others. These algorithmic changes may be subtle, occurring overnight without official notice, leaving even experienced creators in the dark about how the algorithm operates. This gives ByteDance the freedom to steer users towards content that benefits them and their associates. Moreover, TikTok's appeal lies particularly with a younger, more impressionable audience. While the potential negative effects on children and teenagers are not unique to TikTok but applicable to the internet in general, the platform aligns with the CCP's propaganda philosophy of constructing role models. China's domestic version of TikTok, known as Douyin, shows educational and patriotic content, fostering the image of hardworking citizens contributing to the greater communist good. In contrast, TikTok outside China exposes users, especially American children, to sex, vandalism, crime, and social disruption, generating clips that deliver instant gratification. Surveys conducted among preteens in the US and China revealed differing aspirational career choices. Social media influencer ranked highest in the US, while in China, becoming an astronaut was the top choice. This demonstrates how China has harnessed Mao's method of idol creation and weaponized it, using TikTok to sow dissent and weaken Western populations. TikTok serves as a conduit for both cultural and economic influence. Within just 4 years of its US launch, TikTok has become an industry unto itself. Individuals earn their livelihoods solely from TikTok, mainstream celebrities leverage it to maintain relevance and revive their careers, and major companies assemble dedicated teams to market their products on the platform. The CCP benefits from the fact that influential individuals in Western society are chasing views on an app they control, effectively exerting control over these individuals. If people's livelihoods depend directly or indirectly on the number of views they amass on TikTok, they will create content as per the algorithm's requirements. Consequently, the CCP no longer needs to purchase social media companies or sports teams or employ advanced propaganda tactics. They now have the world's most influential and powerful individuals under their influence. This allows them to easily shape the discourse on issues related to China, manipulating certain voices while silencing others. Those who are silenced either conform or risk losing their income and career. When scrolling through a TikTok feed in real time, it may feel like a race to draw conclusions about whether your favorite TikTokers are contributing to the propaganda machine of a corrupt foreign government. However, for the most part, TikTok videos are entertaining, harmless, and fun. Your favorite TikTokers probably provide you with comedy, knowledge, and a sense of community, all at no cost to you. In return, they gain a platform, outlets, and a fulfilling career. It appears to be a win-win situation, and on the surface, there seems to be little reason to distrust the app. However, this version of TikTok is akin to the before picture of the Trojan horse. The global version of TikTok consumed outside China has a single goal in mind. The CCP is playing a long-term game to establish a dominant position as a global superpower. They need users, money, trust, and maximum addictiveness. Thus far, their strategy has been remarkably successful. In just a few years, over 20% of all internet users in the world regularly use TikTok, and this number continues to rise without signs of slowing down. At this rate, TikTok has the potential to become the ultimate global sleeper agent for the CCP, and little is being done to address this. The concern should not be limited to what the CCP and ByteDance are currently doing with TikTok. It should be focused on what they can do. As we have established, if China were to invade Taiwan, the United States would likely side with Taiwan to protect its own trade interests and geopolitical positioning. However, China is unlikely to wait for such an opportunity and may attempt to exploit the distraction caused by the war in Ukraine. TikTok and China's technological expansions represent the opening moves in a growing technological war. While not a full-scale physical war, the most effective wars are fought in the mind. TikTok provides China with the perfect means to achieve its goals. By leveraging TikTok's power and influence over culture, China could easily promote an anti-war agenda, sow doubt about the true nature of the conflict, spread misinformation, and influence high-level content creators to speak out against US intervention. China has already employed similar tactics with Tibet, silencing calls for Tibetan independence, as well as with the Hong Kong protests and the backlash against the Uyghur genocide. This explains why major issues related to China often go unnoticed globally. China controls the algorithm, just like everything else today. A war to defend Taiwan would become a divisive political issue, despite the growing consensus among Democrats, Republicans, liberals, and conservatives regarding the threat posed by China. However, TikTok could be utilized to interfere, delay, or completely halt efforts to defend Taiwan. This is just one of the issues China would like to reshape public opinion on using TikTok. The CCP could sweep their atrocities under the rug, expand their borders, and undermine the social fabric of their adversaries. This is why the US government views TikTok as a significant threat. It is not limited to one side of the US political spectrum. President Joe Biden has expressed his intention to ban TikTok in the United States and has already made progress by prohibiting its use on government devices at the federal and state levels. The Biden administration cites the known data and security risks associated with ByteDance as the primary motivation behind their efforts to eventually ban the app on all civilian devices. The concerns surrounding personal data are legitimate. As recently as June 2022, TikTok employees revealed that everything is visible in China, with a Beijing-based engineer known as Master Admin having access to everything. These practices are outlined in TikTok's privacy policy, where they collect various information about the device you use to access the platform, including your IP address, user region, screen resolution, operating system, app and file names and types, as well as keystroke patterns or rhythms. They monitor your keystrokes, which means they have access to everything you type. It's astonishing. Interestingly, we've already traveled down this path before. Donald Trump attempted to ban TikTok in the US back in 2019, but his efforts were unsuccessful. Although he signed an executive order, the move was eventually blocked. In 2020, the Trump administration settled for a compromise that required ByteDance to sell a 20% ownership stake in TikTok to an American company. Oracle, a tech company, received 12.5%, while Walmart, a department store giant, received 7.5%. Additionally, ByteDance had to allow Oracle to provide cloud services and security for TikTok in the US. In response, Biden quickly took legal action and filed lawsuits. A preliminary injunction was approved in September 2020. ByteDance is exploiting American law to further damage the nation. The fact that both Democrats and Republicans prioritize banning TikTok is significant. However, despite the shared agreement, the ban has not been implemented. With the Biden administration's recent declaration of intent, discussions have already begun. There are vested interests in perpetuating the discourse itself. Unfortunately, successfully banning TikTok is nearly impossible for the government. It is only in countries with strict censorship laws, like India, where a nationwide ban has been achieved. For the United States and the rest of the Western world, the question arises as to whether TikTok is already so deeply ingrained in our culture that its removal will be impossible. However, it should be evident to all who have watched thus far that TikTok is one of the most powerful geopolitical weapons the world has ever witnessed. Thank you for tuning into today's video. I hope you found it informative and engaging. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to trending updates for more content like this. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell to be notified of our latest uploads. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.